welcome everybody to this meetup, which is about the practice of lean in operational service settings. We're going to talk specifically about where it's applied, how it's benefited organization, how it's benefited its customer and its employees. This group's sole purpose is for practitioners to share case studies of lean-based change, transformation, and lessons learned. Now in this group, we know that lean is not the be-all and end-all. Lean has spawned and is connected to Agile, Six Sigma, systems thinking, experience-based design, and many other things. And in the spirit of continuous improvement, Lean is always open to other complementary methods. We tend to have case studies in this forum. We do less about theory, more about the practice, but our case studies will be from manufacturing, service operations, healthcare, support services, distribution, logistics. So all of the business services that you'd expect. And we aim to have business as case studies from around the globe. We've already had David Binners from Netherlands previously. We have Raakesh today from Mauritius, and the one in September will be from Germany. So that is a good going around of the globe. Now, before I say any more, I'd like to introduce Ranmo van Dort as our co-host. Ranmo is the head of BPR at Ceylon Bank. Ranmo, if you can say a few words.
Yes, thank you, Ketan, and really excited to participate for this meetup. As Ketan said, this is the second session that we are having. Earlier, we had a session with David from Shell, and that was also a very insightful session. So really excited and looking forward to hear from Raakesh and to share his. It's great that you have come forward to share your experience, and I hope it will be a good experience for all of us. There's many from various countries around the globe, so it's good to connect with all of you as well. And again, a big thanks to Ketan also for creating this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Ranmo. And I know at some point we'll be getting some case studies from Sri Lanka as well, which would be great.
Yes, definitely. Something that I'm looking forward to.
Okay, so before we start, just some ground rules. We've had a question. We have started recording, and the recording will be on YouTube, which will be shared on the meetup group later on. Okay, it's just for your information. So just before we start, in terms of any questions, any thoughts people have, please put them on the chat. I have said to Raakesh to pick up questions at the end, but if there is something which is kind of a fundamental issue around understanding a concept or maybe an acronym, Raakesh is happy to pause just to explain. So let me start introducing Raakesh. I met Raakesh when I delivered some training in Mauritius a few years ago. One thing about where Raakesh comes from is that it's a very beautiful island, just like Sri Lanka actually. But Mauritius is absolutely beautiful, and a couple of times I've been there to help the Mauritius government. It's been an extraordinary time and some very warm people. Raakesh is an advocate of change in the way that he feels that change is the only constant variable from his experience and his career. His ambition is to challenge the joints and bolts of things, fuel his quest. The more challenging the hunt, the more he stood out. So I think Raakesh's curiosity, his ability to want to find out more really demonstrates his progress around change and lean as well. In terms of his background, with 17 years of experience from hospitality management, aviation, finance, and recently to the banking and finance sectors, he has worked with global business industry and embraced new technologies. Over the years, he has led various change projects, including re-engineering of processes and operational optimization. Raakesh now works at IQEQ, and he's going to tell us about the transformation work there, their approach, and the benefits. Over to you, Raakesh.
Thank you, Ketan. Just try to share my screen. Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, good. Just let me know if you can.
We can see you, Raakesh. Go ahead.
Okay, that's great. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for your time. I think as lean practitioners, we are the change agent in various organizations, and so from time to time, it's good that we aspire ourselves from other people who have been carrying out change in other organizations, but at the same time, share our best practice and share the challenge we are facing, so that as a team we can learn from each other, but also learn how to change the way we are doing things, so that in the future we are able to bring more value from our change. And I believe that knowledge is acquired from various medium, capabilities are acquired from practices, but wisdom is acquired through sharing. So I'm sharing my way of doing things, and I expect that I get to learn from you, and I welcome all your sharing. Maybe some items that I'm adopting in a certain way, you have other principles or other methods that you have been using, which have been more effective. And it's good that the learning is from both ways. So this forum is not going to teach you what you already know and what you've read on the book. It's more about how we have implement lean in our daily habit, and how the thinking we have and the way we are applying our skill have changed the business environment we are working in. So to start with, we have the four main theme of this presentation, which is the introduction, done by Ketan. So I'll bring you into the context of the change I've been adopting and the company I'm currently working for, the methodology used, and the outcome of let's say, on client side, company side, and also the employee side. So start with, I'm working for IQEQ Global Business Mauritius right now. IQEQ is a global company which is present in 23 strategic locations across the world, employing more than 2,400 professionals. And currently, this company is a management company administering more than 400 billion plus USD of portfolios. And the Mauritian entity is a office which is covering the Pan-African region in terms of corporate, fund, and institutional services, as well as private wealth and family office. So IQEQ Mauritius is a company who has been, let's say, facing various change throughout its lifetime, changing from different shareholding, and right now they are expanding over the African region. And one thing is important is that when we as lean practitioner, we are revamping processes, we are implementing change. Adapting a new process, re-engineering a process is something which is our BAU, and it's the ABC of management, project management. However, what we need to understand is the journey of the organization. It's important to understand the company's vision before implementing any change. Throughout my career, I've been working for over 150 projects, and what we have seen is that if you want to adapt to implement a change and you want people to embrace this change, what's important is to understand the company culture, the way they see the company in the future, and also what type of employee you have in the organization. Because what's important is that you're making a change, yes, but a change is not practical if it is not adopted. It's not embraced by the employee. So the journey for IQEQ is that they're a fast expanding company, but they are not opting at expanding in terms of having various number of officers and increase the number of employees. Instead, what they are doing is that they are reviewing the operating model that they are currently have, re-engineering the whole processes from A to Z. That is, the whole operation model is being rethink, optimized, so that instead of having to recruit more people to do the same process, they are maximizing the human capital efficiency. They're increasing the number of activities the same number of employees can do, but at an effective rate. That is, they are not going to ask you to do overtime or to work twice as much as you are working, but instead, we are reviewing the whole process from the simple process to the most complex one to understand how we can reduce the number of activities and the number of time you're taking to do the same process. At the same time, it's reducing the cost, but giving room for more business onboarding so that we can generate more income and bring more in the bottom line. And one thing that I've learned reading the book Art of War is that Chun Tzu wisely said, the wise warrior avoids a battle. Instead of fighting competition, rethinking your business model, rethinking the way you're doing your work every day brings more value to your business than going on the market and challenge your competitors. So I'll just give you a brief of the approach we have carried out. In management companies, there's a lot of processes. Some of them are repetitive, and some of them may be as simple as just invoicing a client. You may not see the value in it once you go through your processes, but what's important is that if you start quantifying each and every process, documenting each of them, analyzing this process and understand what is the future state of the business. If today you have 500 processes or 800 processes that is being carried out by your team, and this process may be taking 5 minutes, some may be taking days to carry out. So it's important that you put on writing each of these processes, document the various steps, quantify how much time each process are taking, so that it helps you understand which process in your organization is consuming more human capital and is not bringing out the desired value for your organization. Bearing in mind that in servicing industry, there's a lot of administrative work that we are doing, but what's generating revenue right now is the one that's facing the client and bringing value to the client. Because in servicing industry, when you're servicing your client, what your clients see as value for money is the amount of time you're spending with them, the amount of time you're taking to deliver the task. They are not concerned with the administrative work you are carrying out behind the screen and how you are doing the whole process behind. They give you a list of projects or a list of tasks. They expect that based on how much fees you're charging for, they get their value out of it. So what we did is that we started building a whole database of information in terms of how many processes we have, how many of them are client-facing, how many of them are not client-facing. Identify the most pain point where you're consuming too much of human capital, and identify the priority in terms of which key process need to be removed from your frontliners, removing the burden from them and alleviating them from this stressful or recurring process, so that they have more time servicing your client and have more time to do more productive work. As you know, every second counts in an organization, and we as lean practitioner, our aim is to bring value in terms of saving time in doing the process, alleviating their workload in terms of making the process streamer so that we can scale it out to automate. And one of the most important things when you're implementing change is to understand the culture and to bring the culture change in the organization. Simply by redefining the process or re-engineering a process, putting it on paper that this process was taking, let's say, 10 to 15 hours before, or was taking X amount of employee being involved in the process. Now it's taking less employee or less time. That's good. But how far is it effective and how far are the people adapting the change? This is what is important. And throughout my career, working from the banking industry to the financial sector, I've seen that many processes are not being implemented accordingly, not because you have not defined the process correctly, but it's because of the adoption. People try to be resilient to change, or try to think that as an external consultant or someone who is out of the process, how can you know the process better than them? How can you show them a better way to do the task? So instead of having to push the change on these people, what we did instead is that we look at key person throughout the process, administrators, create a focus group with them, try to understand their pain and why for them this process are time consuming or cumbersome. Try to hear from them what are their pain points. And these people, you involve them in the process of change. Let them be the one who's going to see how you can effectively bring out the change in this process, or how you can effectively reduce the number of time you're doing the process. And for sure, you're going to see that these people will adopt a positive attitude in terms of change and will embrace the new process that you're embedding in the organization. I call it the elephant in the room because one thing is what important is that a process may be seen as a simple one, but if you look in detail, you quantify how much it has as impact on your organization, on your employee, it can sometimes make you realize that any process is not simple, is not, let's say, how you call it, you would say it's just a simple process. It doesn't add value to the organization, or it doesn't require any change. But when you look at the impact behind, you see that this process is the one you need to kick out of the equation first. A simple one is a billing process, where you just have an agreement with your client, you sign it, you deliver the service and invoice your client. It may be simple as you see it as three steps, but what you don't realize is that it's a process that requires 100% repetitive activity, because you are just taking the invoice, invoicing the client, you put it on your system, quantify how much time you have delivered for the client, and send out the invoice. But in certain organizations, these processes are requiring at least 85% of your human capital involvement, because the person who is servicing the client need to quantify how much time he is servicing the client, put it on a paper, go back, invoice the client, have his line or his supervisor to verify it, send the invoice for approval to their manager, and then ultimately to the client. So each person taking out 5 to 10 minutes or sometimes 1 hour from the busy schedule just for this administrative time is not value adding. And sometimes you see that your frontliners, they have hundreds of things to juggle, whether it's going to be phone calls, mail from client, attending the work for the client, servicing the client, attending internal meeting. The accuracy level in preparing the invoice can go down to only 20% sometimes. That's what we have seen in the past. And if you look at the amount of time these people are delivering, each time they are servicing a client, they are going to be involved in the billing process, invoicing the client, ensure that the data on the invoice are correct. You send it to the client, and sometimes you have pushback where client will tell you these invoices are including fees or services which have not been rendered, things like that. There's a lot of back and forth, and they're struggling in the frontliners for them to get things clear and free their time to service other clients. So what we did was simple. We took that one process, which maybe just a petty one, but was consuming as far as 15 headcount in the process. Re-engineer it, review the way we are billing the client, take it out from the frontliners, put it in a back office unit, do the change, review the process, and see the difference. One thing is important I've learned throughout my career is that sometimes when you're doing change, what you try to do is identify those resources in the process who are doing the tasks very effectively in terms of let's say mechanically they are doing the work first, just take these people out and put them in centralized unit to ask them to do the same service. We have done it in the past, we have seen that it has worked, but what I've learned recently is that instead of taking this person who have been mastering this process, instead of taking them out of the operation team or the frontliners, because bear in mind that these people may be doing it first because they want to save time so that they can service client. They may be having more aptitude, which are an asset for you to leave them in the frontline process than taking them back to the back office. What I did last time, what we did in the company I'm working for, is that instead of having these qualified people out of the process to work in administrative tasks, we train new person to understand the process.
Estava ali em cima do passeio com. Esteve ali em cima do.
Sorry?
Estava ali em cima do passeio, passei lá na boa.
I thought it was a question. Maybe I can carry on with the presentation, or someone has a question?
Just carry on, Raakesh. We just had some interference.
Okay, good. Yeah, so what I was saying is that instead of taking your valuable asset who are doing the task very effectively and put them in a back office, they may have other aptitudes that's more important for your client. Instead, what we did was we trained new people with the new process so that they see the process with a new pair of eyes. The way they're going to do the process is a new way you have redesigned the process. But what's important is that this person are not fee earners and they're not going to reduce your productivity towards your client. So removing the process from the frontliners, putting in a back office with new fresh pair of eyes brings more value to the business than moving your existing client-facing stuff. And just to share what was the benefit of doing such thing is that from 15% involved in the process, it went down to 3%, which is huge benefit in terms of human capital involvement in the process. Reducing the number of person involved means that these 15% can focus on value-adding activity for your client and bringing in more revenue. Because at the end of the day, your sponsor are concerned about the bottom line. Yes, they want you to re-engineer the process. They want you to alleviate the time of the employee, give them more time to focus on client, and also streamline the process so that they don't spend too much time on the process. And what's interesting is that this simple process has reduced the turnaround time by 60%. That is, it's taking only 40% of the time to do the same process, but only 3% is in the process. And as you know, fee earners are quite expensive, and employing people in the back office who are administrative person tend to be, let's say, cheaper for the organization, and it's not time consuming also to train them because they will be able to understand the new process easily. And there are people who are new to the process. So the way they would conceive the process, the way they would see the process would be different to the one who has been doing the process, maybe the wrong way, or has been always juggling between activity to the process. And what's also interesting is that the customer impact is very impressive because invoices were being done throughout the month, so that it was taking you around 20 working days to send the invoices out to client. Right now with a STRAS unit, these invoices come out in less than 5 to 10 days within the month. And with the accuracy of data, less complaint from client and less back and forth with client, this has shown that it's more effective by this new method of adoption and this new implementation. One more thing that's important is that when you are inculcating change in an organization, what's important is that you train people throughout the process to understand what is the vision of the organization, where you want to go from where you are with this change, and how you believe that these people can bring out change in their unit or their department. What I've done so far is that instead of implementing change myself, I created advocate. I've trained people throughout the organization with a new process so that they are the one who's going to train their peers, or they are the one who's going to show their counterpart how they are doing things effectively now with a new process. With, let's say, organization management companies where these organizations are employing people who are less than 25 years old, these youngsters are not concerned about staying overtime for your organization or even staying late to work. They want the quickest way to complete the task effectively so that they can spend their time out in pubs or enjoying their time studying new things. So these people are the one who, if you look at the way they do their tasks, are the one who will show you the lean way of doing the process. So what we did is that we trained these people to become the ambassador of the change and let them through other organizations so that they will speak for you and they will tell their friends or counterparts how they are doing things effectively now with the new process. Just having a, okay, that's good. I think everyone is seeing the lesson learned slide now. What's important when you're reengineering processes and when you're adopting lean is that you have to be systematic in your approach. One, quantifying your current process, identifying the problem, finding the root cause, and quantifying how much time you're going to save by the new process. It's important that you quantify and document all the approaches so that you can see the difference and the impact of the process being re-engineered. And what's more effective is that usually organizations tend to push change from above. Management come to their staff and tells them that, this is a new process, here it is, so go and implement it. Sometimes it may work, but with the new business environment, you have more pushback because people doing the task will challenge you in terms of how can you, someone who has been in management, in top management so far, how can you show me a better way of doing things? Have you been in my shoes? Have you been doing this task yourself? So what we did is that we changed the approach, and instead of having managers or senior managers doing the change, what we did was that empowering junior staff with the ability to implement and change themselves, training youngsters or level 1, level 2 in an organization to bring in the change, to define the new process, and to start implementing the new process has been more effective than having it a top-down approach. We have seen less resilience in terms of adopting the new process, more people wanting to be part of the change, wanting to be part of the change team, and also we've seen that more people are coming back telling us, giving us feedback of what's working and what's not working on the field. So that once you implement the process, you can tweak out things that's not working well and implement a level 2, level 3 process reengineering throughout the process within the first 3-4 weeks of implementation so that you can optimize the process. And it's kind of welcoming and interesting to see that youngsters in the organization or junior staff talking about the process and sharing how these are helping them, how the new process or the new way we are doing things are improving the way they were working, giving them more time to focus on more quality adding activity throughout their day instead of doing repetitive activity a whole day or even staying late during the night to complete their task. And one more lesson learned that I want to share is about the culture change when the change comes from bottom up instead of management imposing on the employees. we've seen throughout even at Movement where a lot of change were being carried out by junior staff. You see that people are less resilient to the change and are less questioning the way you're implementing the change because they find it useful for them and they are part of the change. You're giving them a chance to voice out their frustration, what's not working, and what they believe to be the best way to do these new processes. I want to share with you some feedback from people who have been embracing the change that we have been carrying out, whether it's at Movement or IQEQ. Some see it as a game changer, as this has been giving room from simple process to automation and digitalization. Nowadays, most of the recurrent repetitive tasks need not have human capital intervention. You can create a bot, implement the whole process from human intervention to automation where you don't have people involvement, and it improves the way of life of your employee because they spend less time doing administrative work and do things which are more creative and more, let's say, inspiring for them. Some junior staff have very well shared that it is simplifying their life and time saving for them. On the other side, whatever you are doing as implementation or change in your organization has an impact on your client. And seeing client coming back to you happy that they have less complaint, less time are spent on their side to review invoices because now the narrative are standard or even the invoice are coming in on time. They have much time for them to go through the approval process on their side. So it's important that whenever we are re-engineering the process, we look at the different stakeholders in the process, whether it's your own employee, your management, the customers who are the end recipient of your process, and also your middle management who are saving time, less focus on doing reviewing or approving administrative tasks, which are sometimes repetitive, time consuming for them, and gives them rise to be, let's say, have more vision and train their staff for new processes or new type of technologies, new products that they want to implement or cross-sell to their client. Saying this, I'm coming to the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer your questions, and if you have anything that you want me to clarify in terms of whatever I've presented, more than welcome to assist you.
Great. Thank you so much, Raakesh. Before we head on to questions, can you just, if you don't mind, just stop sharing your screen so that people can, other people can come on board. I'm just going to make a couple of comments, but everybody else, if you do have any questions, if you could put them on chat, that would be great. Raakesh, the two things that I, having been involved in so many transformations myself, but the two things I really, that really interested in me and heartened me was the comment you made about the fact that, IQEQ's clients are very much interested in that client-facing time. They're not interested in the effort and time spent in doing back office admin, and that's what they really value. And that was really great that that you recognize that and realize that really that was the value adding thing for the client, not the hours spent. So that was great. And the other fact that the people who are your best people, the people who are the most creative and can look at processes and simplify them, were not the people you then asked to do more volume of work and move them to a back office, but actually asked them to then be part of teams that then led improvement and did more client-facing work, more complex work. So that was really fascinating for me. Rakesh, my question before we come on to other questions was that in terms of when roles needed changing, because as you said, you went down from 15 to 3 roles in some areas, and some people are moved. How are the conversations handled with the staff? You know, because of course some of them would have been, you know, maybe quite comfortable in doing some of the administrative tasks. How were the conversations handled in a way that there was less resistance?
Okay. First of all, what we need to understand is that when we are working in service industry, most of our frontliners tend to be the one who's in contact with your client. And for them, sometimes internal processes are a burden or a hassle. So what's interesting is that when you're doing change, you don't just start with the process that are client facing. I reckon that you need to re-engineer the process where your client are facing, but what you also need to look at is what is causing the most bottleneck in the process and what is causing the most hassle for your staff, because your internal client is your staff, and they are the one who is going to be the ambassador of your brand to your client. If you don't, let's say, make their life easier, they are going to pass on the stress they are facing with your administrative work to your client. And this, you see it in organizations like in banks, where the more time they spend with their, let's say, account opening pack, their documentations that they need to fill, when they are in front of the client, they tend to spend their time like robots with the client. So just go and ask questions to the client so that they can fill the checklist and the application. So what we did was that we show these people what is the value added of reviewing the process or removing this administrative work from their plate, how they have more time to service the client and focus on what's more important in their role. So removing the administrative work from them and hassle brings, let's say, a smile on their face, but also tend to improve the way they are servicing their client. When we are re-engineering the whole organizational process, we look at client-facing process and non-client-facing process. Client-facing process, I think everyone knows that this is a key for you to improve the process with your client and also the interaction with your client. But what you need to understand is that your internal client is the one who is going to have the highest hassle if they still have a lot of administrative or paperwork to be carried out after they have serviced the client. So what we did was that we divide our effort, show these people how we are improving their life by removing the administrative work on their plate, and secondly, how the change we are bringing in for the client-facing role and the client-facing process that they have on their plate, how this improves their interaction with client and gives them more time to, let's say, upskill themselves, learn new job, or even prepare themselves to, let's say, from a junior staff to become senior staff, manager, or aspire to become a director a few years down the line. So I think the most important thing is the value added to the staff.
That's really, really good, Rakesh. And one of the things that just occurred to me in your answer is that once those staff feel the administrative burden is less, they're doing less value added, they're doing more value added work, less, rework, then there is no resistance because that's what they want as well. So you don't need to convince them. It becomes a no-brainer, as they say. So thank you. Paul, I know you had a question. I think it was on similar lines. So you may want to rephrase it, but please go ahead if you want to ask something else.
You did just answer it basically. So in effect, what you're saying is you're not simply interested in improving internal services by improving the flow efficiency for your internal client. You are also therefore improving the flow efficiency for your external clients. And as long as you keep that in mind and you're not always just operating the change as a cost efficiency process, then I can see, yes, that is a lean way of thinking and approaching things. So your answer to the previous question has given me the answer that I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Ranmore, I think you had a question, Ranmore?
Yes, Ketan, I was listening to Raakesh, and he talked about changes that he has created and how 15 was brought down to 3. My question is on the changes that was brought in, right? What was the percentage of technology used in this? Was it mainly technology-driven initiatives or simple process changes? And if it was technology, how did you really manage the technology resources? Was it in-house developments, vendor developments? How did it happen? What was that balance?
Okay. Well, first of all, before you go to technology-driven change, what we did was that we took the whole process, review it, and re-engineer. Once re-engineered, we put it back in the mechanism and let the people start doing the same process in a different way. See how people adapt it and adapt to the change. What you see in some organizations that you can go to the extreme from the existing process down to technology, it can work. But in Mauritius, we have seen that this doesn't really add value if the whole process is not being carried out by the employee first. So what we did first, from the current process, we move it to the new process, put it back to in the network, let them do it, then adopt technology. The next phase is this optimization and robotization, which is coming through, where the same process is not going to be carried out by employee now, but by a bot. So you have two ways to look at technology implementation. You can take one off-the-shelf practice, which some organizations tend to go, which is cheaper. But what I suggest is that you take the one that best fit for your organization, be it being implemented, being redesigned in-house or partially off-shelf and adapting to the way you're doing business. It all goes down to the platform you have, which can accept this change. Don't forget that sometimes you need to look at whether your system can support the new technology. Second, whether your employee are ready for the new technology in terms of their ability to adapt things. And thirdly, what would be the impact on your client? So currently we have studied these 3 items, and first we have adapted so that our employee welcome the change. Secondly, we are using external vendor who are helping our internal staff to automate it into, let's say, using bot to automate the process. So ultimately what we want is that the whole process, which is administrative, we want it to be carried out by bot without having human intervention. But you can't just take it from here and put it at the end of the process. You will have to do it in phase to see the impact and to let your organization embrace the change and accept the new way of doing things.
Thank you, Raakesh. Ranmore, is that fine?
Yeah, it is fine. So I love what Raakesh said, is first you do the manual changes, let it run, and then bring the automation and the bots in. So yeah.
Right. Raakesh, I had, well, actually I have one more question, but let's see if anybody else has any other questions. Has anybody got a question for Raakesh? Please unmute and ask. Oh, here we are. This is from Bunty Rauji. How do you manage the employee aspect with all the apprehensions and process automation and robotics? I guess they're going to be worried about losing their job, I think is what Bunty is saying. So how do you manage that? Because I guess at some point, unless you grow at the same rate as the amount of efficiency you're making, you may have to lose people or redeploy people.
Well, let's say when you're telling people that you're automating a process and using robotics to digitalize a few things, the first thing that comes to their mind is my job at risk. Well, what's more important is that when you're doing automation and robotics, you're taking out administrative process from the flow of your employee. So you're freeing the calendar. you need to ensure that once on one side you train them back so that they can be redeployed to do new activity, or giving them the chance to share with you what are their expectations, whether they have a career path that they want to adopt. Make them the one who's going to tell you what they want to do next, because what happens is that you can't do a job eternally, and what's important is that you train your staff, give them the platform desired so that they can come up front and tell you what they want to do, or if you're offering 30 to 40% of the time, what new tasks you want them to do, and train them for that. Don't just freeze the time and give them additional work like robots, because what will happen is that you will tend to overburden them with activity which may not be in their competence, or which are not aligned to their aspiration and what they want to do next. So it's important that it's not the directors or the senior managers that have a chat with them. It's externally your HR team who does this part. So your HR team should sit with each and every person in the process, have a one-to-one conversation with them, which is out from their line manager. Because bear in mind that sometimes staff won't voice out their aspiration or their ambition in front of the manager, in fear that the manager sees that they want to move to another department or another activity and try to put pressure on them. The idea when you're doing change is that you want to improve the life of your employee, but at the same time, you want your employee to be more productive and more keen to take higher role. Because by bringing them the level up, they're the one who know the whole nitty-gritty of your simple process, who can manage more people. So the idea is to let's say give them a platform to voice out their frustration, because you're going to have people frustrated when you're removing process because they are happy with the comfort zone. It may not be their first skill, or they may be having different skills that they are not exploiting. So it is someone else from let's say from the process, not the supervisor, not the manager, who speaks with them, trains them, gives them the platform to do additional training, upskilling, so that they can take out new challenge and new role. So that would be my reply to Bunty.
Thanks, Raakesh. That was very comprehensive and great. I think Bunty's said I fully concur. So fantastic that with your point. Has anybody got any other questions? Please do unmute and ask. While we're waiting, Raakesh, I had one question. You talked in your last slide about your approach and lessons learned, and you talked about the real focus on bottom-up change. And my question is, in terms of senior management, i.e. the top, what were the 2 or 3 things they did to really facilitate the changes you and your team brought about?
Well, first of all, the biggest challenge was to explain to your senior management that, hey guys, we don't want you involved in the process. You're our, let's say, sponsor for this project. You want this types of achievement. You want efficiency, you want a reduction in cost, you want to optimize revenue. That's fine. But what you need to give away is the control on these changes. So first you need to do that and explain to them the value add of doing a bottom-up approach. Because if you impose yourself as senior management on your employee, what happens is that your employee tend to obey than giving you feedback on what's not working in the process. At the end of the day, any management of an organization want to know what's happening on the field, what's happening down the line on the shop floor, what's not working, so that they can fix it and improve client let's say client-facing role, and also improve the productivity towards your client. So first of all, you need to mitigate that spot of your senior management. Then you can give, let's say, youngsters or the junior one the time as a, let's say, the platform to voice up what's not working in the process, and give them the chance to bring change in your organization. Hope
you.
it answer your question, Ketan.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense, Raakesh. You know, it seems like what you're saying is the top management need to give enough runway space for the plane to fly, but then keep out of the way so that you can actually fly the plane. Otherwise, if you keep on, you know, there's a saying, isn't there, that once you planted the seeds, if you keep on uprooting to see if the seeds are growing, they're never going to grow. But I think, you know, from what you've said, you know, top management, you know, being able to do that and have that trust with top management is fundamental, and it's really, you know, I really applaud you and your organization on being able to do that. Can be very, very hard from my experience in asking senior management to let go. Has anybody got any final questions or any final thoughts before we wrap up? This is your chance. Okay, great. Okay, okay. So let me finish by just thanking Raakesh for presenting. It was absolutely tremendous to have you here. And you know, the few things I will really take away is understanding of that internal the external client, how the fact that you can add value to both of those clients, how the fact that the change you brought about was very much based on action and not necessarily convincing people, because once they could see the change and the benefit to them, that nobody needs convincing. I also like the fact that any efficiency that was brought about, there was a dialogue with people in terms of how that saved time could contribute towards their growth, to contribute towards their creativity. So it wasn't a one way of, well, you've saved a huge amount of time, go and do more. It was very much development led of people. And finally, you know, you showed the benefits, you know, which are very clear. Getting from 15 to 3 staff, one process. I mean, that's just incredibly huge. So thank you so much, Raakesh. I hope, I know your journey continues, and I hope that at some point you come back and present again, maybe in a few months' time. But for now, thank you so much. If we could all, you know, just thank Raakesh in the usual way, maybe with a clap, that would be great. If you could unmute and clap, that would be great. Thank you so much, Raakesh.
Thank you. It was my pleasure sharing my experience with you guys.